I would say that a lot of times it is not what you are selling or your product or your service that's the problem. It is the way that you are messaging it that is the problem. So I know that's pretty broad, but if your message isn't landing, if your social media posts aren't sticking, if nobody's really replying to your emails, it's not that the content is bad or that the service or the product that you provide isn't super helpful. It's that you haven't yet hit on the pain point that people are struggling with that you can help them fix.
Life Matters, a Penn Mutual podcast for financial professionals, bringing you life insurance insights from advanced sales experts and life insurance specialists. Grow a stronger practice today.
Welcome to this episode of Life Matters, a Penn Mutual podcast. I'm your host, Bill Bell, Vice President of Advanced Sales with Penn Mutual, and I am so pleased that you chose to join us here today. Now, digital marketing is a challenge for a lot of financial professionals. In fact, I was just at a meeting a couple of months ago with a financial professional that I've known for many, many years, and he was remarking about how he really needs to get his digital marketing efforts off the ground. He had worked primarily through referrals for clients for the last several decades, but he had stated that a bunch of his referral sources were starting to retire, and so he knew that he needed to really start doing some digital marketing to find clients going forward here. So that was just one example. I know a lot of financial professionals are in the same boat, and for many of those individuals, the question is, where do I start? What is it that I should be doing? What's some low-hanging fruit that I should be utilizing? And so to answer some of those questions and a whole lot more, we decided to ask a real expert on to this episode of the show, Samantha Russell, who is the Chief Evangelist at FMG Suite. She specializes in teaching financial advisors how to leverage digital marketing strategies for growth. Her expertise includes website development, content marketing, search engine optimization, social media, video, and a whole bunch more. Samantha is an award winner in our industry. She's gotten a lot of accolades, including Investment News' 40 Under 40, Think Advisor's Luminary designation, Wealth Management's Top 10 to Watch, and a whole bunch more. She's just a great person to listen to. She's a wealth of information. I really enjoyed the interview. So we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, I have my first ever announcement that I get to make here on Life Matters at Penn Mutual podcast. I want to take a quick moment to share a quick tip for everybody tuning in today. Did you know that your clients can sign up for paperless delivery of Penn Mutual documents? Yes, it's true. Paperless delivery of Penn Mutual documents. They'll receive instant notification via email when their documents are ready to view. It's quick, easy, and secure to go green. So have your clients head over to myaccount.pennmutual.com. That's myaccount.pennmutual.com to get started and enroll today. It only takes a minute to opt in. Make sure to look for the delivery preferences link in their account portal. And on a personal note, I'm a Penn Mutual policyholder. I've opted into this. It only took me a few seconds, and it's going to allow my mailman so much more room in our mailbox for Johnny Waugh's catalogs for my wife. So take a second, check that out. It's quick, it's easy, and it's something that I would encourage everybody to at least consider that is a Penn Mutual policyholder. So with that, why don't we roll that interview that I did with Samantha, and I'll be back on to wrap it up afterwards. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill.
All right, well, let's get first things first out of the way here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about FMG Suite and what inspired you to focus on digital marketing for financial professionals.
Yeah, so I am the Chief Evangelist at FMG, which when I told my dad that, he was very confused about that title. But basically what it means is a lot of tech companies have a chief evangelist. And when you're in technology, right, a lot of times technology can sort of blur together. We don't know what each company does. And so I have the very fun job of going out and doing podcasts and interviews and speaking engagements and creating content for advisors to teach them what they really should be doing when it comes to their marketing and then how a tool like FMG can help them accomplish that. So we are an all-in-one marketing platform built specifically for financial advisors. So it combines your email marketing platform, your social media scheduling tool, your events, registration and landing pages, your website management tool. It integrates with your CRM. And then we actually will give you content that you can either use as is or make your own. And it all gets routed through compliance first. So you know that you don't have to worry about that compliance workflow. So I have been helping advisors with their marketing for over a decade. I got into the industry because my late husband was a professor at Penn State, and he got a very large contract with a financial institution, and he was helping them look good. But when he started working to link all of the individual advisors with their Find an Advisor lookup tool, he said, well, the individual advisors have some work to do. And so we had built a business that eventually was acquired by FMG in 2020, and I've been with FMG ever since.
Terrific. So you brought up a couple of points there. Financial professionals, I think, for the most part, struggle, or a lot of them struggle with digital marketing. And I think back to the beginning of my career, I'm a lot older than you. And so I've been around for a long time. And when I first started in this industry, most insurance companies didn't even have a website, much less
Right.
social media didn't exist at that point and so forth. Since you've been doing this, how has digital marketing changed? And specifically for financial professionals, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen over the last few years?
That's such a great question. I think what really has been the pivotal moment, if I look back on my career, I got involved in the industry in about 2013, was right at 2020 during the pandemic. I can remember like it was yesterday, creating all of this content for people who'd solely relied on in-person meetings, seminars, events, referrals. And now the world is shut down. And how do you continue to grow and get the word out? And so I really think that if we look back, that was such a keystone moment for people in realizing this was no longer a nice to have, but a pivotal part of their business. And the world has just gotten increasingly more digital since then. You know, the average person spends about 1 hour and 52 minutes per day watching videos on their phone. The way that people go through the referral process has changed significantly. So yes, people are still asking friends and family, hey, who do you work with? Who do you trust? But if they get 3 names, they're looking up those 3 people, seeing what they're sharing on social media. What does their website say? What are other people saying about working with them? And then they're making their choice. So I would say that, 2020 was just this pivotal moment, and it became too big to ignore for firms.
We've had some Penn Mutual executives on this podcast in the past, and they've referenced that as well. You wouldn't believe this, but even as most recently as like 7, 8 years ago, every single case that was submitted to Penn Mutual was all paper. The application was
Wow.
paper. The underwriting files were paper. Like they would literally pass them around. And we had developed an electronic submission platform, kind of an e-app, which is called ACE, Accelerated Customer Experience.
Okay.
That was really ahead of its time. And during the pandemic, it really caught fire because of that exact circumstance where the
Sure.
world was becoming more digital and so forth. So I could definitely see how that was the flashpoint that kind of launched digital marketing as not a nice to have, but a have to have for successful financial professionals. And in fact, when you're talking about digital marketing for financial professionals, what are some of the traits that you see for people that do it well versus people that don't do it so well?
That's such a great question. I think one of the first things is that we really, especially again in the last 5 years, people started working from home. We started, having meetings, and you could see our messy backgrounds of our offices. The line between personal and professional has become more gray and a little bit more blurred. But the people that are really doing well online are trying to replicate those offline conversations, which means you have to sort of become a little bit more unbuttoned and a little bit more personal in what you share and the persona that you put on. So for instance, if I come and have a meeting with someone in their office, I'm going to see a picture of their kids. I'm going to see where they went on vacation, all these little conversation starters. But yet people feel very, very hesitant to post a picture of their family on social media or to include a personal story on their website. But those are those moments that allow people to bond with us, because at the end of the day, why does anyone choose to work with any financial professional? It's because of the relationship. That is what we're selling more than anything else, right? And so the people who are doing it really well, they're doing things like the bio on their website or their LinkedIn. Instead of it sounding like an obituary, Samantha Russell, in third person, graduated from Miami University. She went on to do this. I'm not dead. Let's write it in first person and make it a conversation and say, I'm passionate about helping people for these reasons. And here's a little bit about my story. And here's why I love working with people like X, Y, or Z. So, writing your bio, your LinkedIn page in first person, sharing photos on your website or on your LinkedIn page that maybe show, something you and your team got up to over the weekend, or maybe it's a picture of you running a marathon and you talk about an analogy of how it helps you in business to be a dedicated runner. The more you can, kind of pull back the onion a little bit and share those personal tidbits online, the more you're giving everyone who's a potential prospect the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better and to get to choose you for that relationship. And that's what successful people are doing.
Pictures of dogs seem to go over really, really well.
They do. Dogs are always a safe bet.
So a little follow-up to that. I've heard some financial professionals in the past, when I'm encouraging them to build a LinkedIn profile, and we'll get to that in a little bit here, that they don't want to share personal pictures because they think that that's what Facebook or Instagram is for, and that LinkedIn should really be business and not really kind of showing the personality or the personal lifestyle of an individual. How do you have conversations with people that push back on that? How do you make sure that you kind of like have that balance where it's not Instagram where somebody's putting up every single meal, pictures of every single meal that they have, but that you kind of have that right balance of sharing business and personal within that same profile?
I mean, my biggest pushback is just, that's your opinion, but it's wrong. I mean, I do this. I've been doing it for, like I said, over a decade. And if somebody comes to me and they are not getting business from a platform like LinkedIn and they do what I tell them to do, they will start getting business from it. So it's not my opinion. It is what works. Whether you feel comfortable with it is a different scenario. And so we need to find the balance of what can we share about your life that you will feel comfortable sharing. And what I always say is, would you tell this story or show this picture if you went to a conference and you were standing around with all your peers, or you were teaching a seminar and you were in front of a room of prospects? If it's something you would share in those instances, then it's perfectly acceptable to share it on LinkedIn. So most people would have no problem saying, oh yeah, I qualified for the Boston Marathon and I'm so proud of that. And it's a big part of my personality is I set goals and I achieve them and I have processes for them, and you can make a tie-in to your business. Then that should be something that's no problem sharing it on LinkedIn and making that connection. I agree that it would be sort of weird to say, well, I went to Walmart and then this is the food I ate. And then this isn't a personal blog. But if it's something you can share in a business setting, or you would share, right? We don't go to conferences and never share a personal story. We talk about our golf game or the team we're rooting for. Then you should absolutely feel comfortable doing it on a platform like LinkedIn.
Very good. For somebody that's listening and they really haven't started to build their digital footprint, what are some of the lowest hanging fruit that those people should focus on first?
Great question. So the very first thing I have people do, a lot of times people will come to me and say, should I start making videos? Should I add, write 2 articles a week or be a guest contributor for this or that? The first thing I always ask are 2 questions. Number 1, what about your business is the most marketable? So let's not think about marketing tactics. Let's turn the question around and say, what about your business is the most marketable? So we're going to answer that question first. And then I'm going to say, if you think of your target audience, where do they hang out online? And we're going to take that first answer, craft messaging, and then we're going to distribute it in the channels that we know those people are hanging out. So I can help answer this for everyone. Everyone needs to have a strong website because every single consumer searches the internet and lands on websites of businesses they want to do business with. So we need to make sure we've got that really, really strong, because that is your business storefront online. And then the second thing is that when someone does do a search for you, LinkedIn has such amazing SEO, search engine optimization, that it is almost always the second or third result someone will see when they do a search. So you need to nail that LinkedIn page. But I would actually really focus on your LinkedIn personal page even more than your business page, because people don't form a connection with a logo the way they form with an individual person, right? So we want to have a really strong individual LinkedIn page. But then once we know kind of where your target audience is hanging out, we can think about what kind of campaigns we can run. Email is still the most effective because on a platform like social media, right, if we put a post up, only maybe 1 to 2% of the people we're connected with are going to see it. Whereas an email, we at FMG see oftentimes 40% open rates. So your, ability to really make sure that the right people are seeing your message is very different. So those two questions is how I would start.
So I want to circle back to the website for a second here. First of all, I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibilities that if somebody is researching financial professionals and they might run into somebody's LinkedIn page, but then they look to see if there's a website and they don't have one, they might not want to work with that person because they might not think that they're legitimate or something like that. I mean, I know that I've done that in the past with not necessarily financial professionals, but other businesses. Go to look for their website. I can't find one. I'm like, well, I'm not going to work with them. So I think that is important. But when you're talking to financial professionals that are going to endeavor to create a website, what's some of the content that you see that's really impactful? And what's some of the fluff that they can leave off of websites that's not really important?
So we at FMG have analyzed thousands, tens of thousands of websites. And I can tell you with certainty, the 3 most visited pages of any financial professional's website is first your homepage. Second is your bio, about, team, whatever you call it, that page where you're talking about the people. And then the third is whatever your call to action page is. So contact, get started, work with us, however you label it. So if you truly wanted to strip down your website to just those 3 pages, you could and have a very effective business. And what's interesting about that is that it's not the list of services you offer. It's not the products. It's not the process, right? It's really, again, all about the people. So what I tell people to do is to focus on 2 things. Number 1, what is the problem that most of the people that come to you have? Like what's keeping them up at night? What's the transition point in their life that they finally say, okay, yes, I need to do this? Because we all know we need to do these things, but we put it off, put it off, put it off. So what is that tipping point that brings them to you? And how can you talk about it in your website so that when they land on it, they can what we call self-qualify. Before you ever even talk to them, they say, man, Bill gets it. He works with people just like me who have the same problem, so I know he's going to be a good fit. That's what we want them to do. And then the second thing we want is to remember that not everyone who lands on a website is actually ready to go ahead and book a meeting, right? 97% of people who land on your homepage do not convert. They look at the website and then they leave. So we want to have a way to capture those people, their email, so that we can continue to drip relevant content on them and not be salesy or pushy, but share information with them that's going to keep you top of mind. So we want to have some sort of download or guide or giveaway, 5 things to think about before X, Y, or Z. You can download it here. Just give us your email so that we can capture those 97% of people who are not yet ready to convert. Those would be the main things that I would share. Focus on your home, your about, the get started page, and then have some way to capture all the people who aren't yet ready to actually book a time with you.
So 2,700 words on the history of the firm is probably not necessary for a website, is what you're saying.
Yeah, a good exercise is to look at your site, and actually with all your marketing, there's a great quote I love, which is that no one cares what you can do. They care what you can do for them, right? So take away we've been in business for 30 years. We have these credentials. We're the greatest. We've got this award. And instead focus on you messaging. You struggle with this. We work with clients who, say things like this, or these are the kinds of questions you might be wondering, and this is how we can help answer them. So you want to constantly think about what are the words or phrases or the language that the customer or the prospect would have, and use their words. I mean, that's a big problem we have in financial services too, is we use way too much jargon. If you read the newspaper or magazine, there's something called the Flesch-Kincaid score, and it's a readability score that all writing can be given. You can actually go to the Hemingway. It's an AI tool and copy and paste your writing in there and it'll give you the score for free. You want it to be at like a 7th grade level. That's what newspapers and magazines, even the Wall Street Journal, are written at that. In financial services, we tend to write more like at a high school senior paper level, which people's eyes glaze over and they don't feel seen and heard. So really, making your writing more relatable is such a simple thing, but that can go a really long way too.
That one talks to me because our marketing department is constantly making fun of my word choices in some of my written material. I used the word pugilist in a blog the other day.
What does that mean, Bill? I don't know what that means.
It means boxer. And they said, why can't you just use boxer? And I said, fine, I'll do that. So yes. I am cognizant of making sure that I use relatable words when I write as much as possible. Now, sometimes it's just not possible because I have a very technical job and sometimes there's technical language that has to be included in the written pieces. But for the most part, my writing is plain language and I try to make sure that I can use words that everybody knows. But now you know what pugilist means.
I do. So, I learned something new. I love it.
Very good. All right. So you mentioned SEO earlier. For those of our listeners that are not familiar with what SEO is, it's search engine optimization. But as SEO and AI-driven search evolves as quickly as it is, what should financial professionals think about as far as maximizing visibility in 2025 and beyond?
Great question. The good news is one of the answers goes back to what we just said, which is writing using the language that the prospect or the consumer would have. So I always tell people, keep a little notepad next to you. And when you're talking to people, write down the questions that they ask you using the exact words and phrases that they ask. Because what AI has really done and voice search, when we go to search now, right, we don't just say Social Security. We say, what age can I claim Social Security in Ohio? And are there any penalties for claiming it earlier? Like a very long, very specific question. And the people that are going to rank high or the answers that AI is going to give are going to be very, very specific. So the more specific you can be, the better, the more you use your customer's language. And then because we pretty much now almost exclusively search by asking questions, whether it's on Gemini, ChatGPT, or even in Google, on your website, in your LinkedIn post, frame your content in this question and answer format. So if you have a page where you are talking about the services you provide, and you're talking about life insurance, think of all the questions somebody could ask you about life insurance and position them, right? So you have your first question and then your answer, the next question and then your answer, and just put it right on that page. And Google and AI love that because you're making the job easier for them. They're making it a lot easier for people to find you. So the more you can include content that has those FAQs or those question and answers, the better for SEO.
Following up on AI, one of the questions that we get very frequently is from financial professionals is, what are some of the AI tools that they should be considering? I mean, I think everybody is aware of ChatGPT, but there's a whole lot of other stuff out there that people might not be familiar with. What are some of the key ones that you talk to financial professionals about?
Yeah. So when it comes to marketing, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor myself, so I know there's a lot of tools you can use that just help your practice run better. But from a marketing perspective, that Hemingway one that I just mentioned, Hemingway.ai, it's a writing tool that just makes your messaging sound more like your target audience, which is amazing. So they have a free version that you can go in and get your reading score. They have a paid version that will help your writing sound crisper, cleaner, less jargony, all that good stuff. So that's a really good one. If you are considering using video, I love Veed, VEED.io. You can record both yourself and your screen. And with editing, you can click a button. It will add all the subtitles for you. If you mess up, you can hover over a word you messed up and change it. And it can actually clone your voice so that you don't have to re-record the whole thing. Yeah, it's really cool. So that's Veed.io. You can also add like little images and things over it. FMG has a mobile app where you can choose articles from syndicated publications like the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, whatever, and then have a button where we've trained it with my training on what a good social post looks like that gets people talking and engaging. And so you can ask the AI tool to write the post for you. And anyone who has an FMG account gets access to this tool once compliance approves it. So that is a really fantastic one. I also just did a workshop with Zocks, Zocks. There's another tool called Jump. They're basically all these AI assistants that will summarize meetings that you have pre and post, but those can be really, really helpful for advisors as well. So those are just some of the ones off the top of my head.
That's a pretty robust list. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I want to circle back to something else that you talked about is the call to action. And I think this is where a lot of financial professionals struggle. They might have a LinkedIn presence, they might have a website, but taking that communication, email maybe is also a good example, taking that communication and kind of turning it into kind of that warm lead or that something actionable where a financial professional is going to have an opportunity to meet with a client is something that I think some people do struggle with. What are some of the mistakes that you see specific to that? And what are some of the things that you would suggest to financial professionals to improve in that particular realm?
What I always say is attracting people to your business is a lot like dating in the sense of people can smell desperation from a mile away and they are totally turned off by it, right? Like if you want to make someone not want to work with you, appear desperate and they will never, ever answer your calls or your messages. The more you act as if it doesn't matter whether they work with you, you just want to be helpful to them, the more they will be drawn to you like a magnet, right? So the best way to attract people is to just genuinely be helpful. And that's why content marketing is so amazing, because we do have a real trust problem as an industry where a lot of people aren't sure who they can trust. There was a study by the Bank of New York, Mellon Pershing, that found that over 2/3 of consumers report that they have a really hard time telling the difference between any two financial professionals because they all look and sound the same. So the way you can make yourself stand out is by providing really helpful content relevant to the people you're working with. So I would suggest every time that you meet someone and you learn any little things about them in your CRM to put them in different groups, right? So you could have like an under 50 group, an over 50 group. If something comes out about, things that are going to be relevant to the latter group, you don't want to email people who are in their 30s about legislation or maybe like the COLA increase, for instance. That's not relevant to them. So by being more segmented in the way that you set up your CRM, you can set super hyper specific content to the right people. So there's a gentleman I work with, for instance, and he has a couple different lists. And every single Thursday, he sends out a newsletter to everyone on his list, both clients and prospects. So they're all getting it. So it's pretty simple, straightforward. He's, kind of recapping what's in the news, how people should be thinking about it. But then it gives him space where, let's say something does happen, like a cost of living increase is announced. He has segmented lists that he can just send it out to one particular part of the population. And that just really builds trust and credibility. And when someone sees your name in their inbox over and over again, week after week, and you're not asking for anything, you're not selling them anything, you're just sharing great information with them, they will begin to trust you. And that's really what we specialize in helping advisors do at FMG, because we run those email campaigns for you.
Yeah, for those of you that are listening to this podcast and not watching on the Penn Mutual YouTube channel, you did see that I started to smile and laugh when Samantha mentioned dating analogy, because my friends and I, back when we were in college, used to say that if somebody hadn't had a date for a while, that they were wearing Desperado, kind of named after the Eagles song. And yes, I'm dating myself a little bit here.
No, I love that song. I love that song.
Yeah, exactly. But kind of same idea is that there's definitely a fine line in between being enthusiastic and being desperate. And I think that you kind of laid it out really well there in regards to that differentiation. Now, some of our listeners are large practices, and if they want to build a digital footprint, if they haven't already, they have budget to go out and hire consultants and hire people to build their website, hire people to build their social media presence. But some of them are small practices that just don't have a big marketing budget as of right now. For those people that are budget conscious, what are some of the things that people can be doing that isn't going to cost a lot of money? What are some of the things that you would suggest for those firms?
Sure. A really easy one is every single Friday to go through every single person you met with that week, whether it was a virtual meeting, an in-person meeting, even anyone that you emailed with, and send them a LinkedIn connection request. Because again, we want to stay in front of people, even if they're not yet ready to work with us, even if it's someone you don't know, if it could be a contractor you were just emailing back and forth with, but you don't know who they in their life might eventually want to refer to you. So the larger you can build your network of people available to see your content, that will then position you as an expert that can help them with a certain thing, the better. So that's a really easy one. Every Friday, go through, send out those connection requests. Make sure at least, a few times a week you are posting relevant, helpful content. It doesn't cost you anything. You can work with a firm like ours where we'll do it for you. But if you want to write it, if you want to find an article and share it, that is something that will just continue to, pop up for people and see, oh, Samantha knows what she's talking about when it comes to marketing. Bill knows what he's talking about when it comes to insurance, right? Whatever it is. And it will just keep you on their radar when the problem arises and they're ready to either refer someone or, they themselves want to hire someone. So I would say those are two things that anyone can do with no matter the budget that they have.
So I have a pretty robust social media presence on LinkedIn. It pales in comparison to yours, but we're not competing here. But you have a very impressive LinkedIn presence and page. For people like myself or other people that are listening that are part of a larger organization, because there's a lot of them that do listen to this podcast, why is it important that they build their own kind of personal brand on LinkedIn? Does it overall have an effect on the larger organization? And hopefully you and I agree on that, because I think it does. And why is it so important to ABM, which is a saying that we have in my department, always be marketing?
Yes. So I guess let's tackle the first question first. There's a lot of people listening that maybe have never heard of FMG before or have, but they could be connected with me, Samantha Russell, right? When you have a personal brand, you are more memorable, and it's like a, rising tide lifts all boats. If you have 10 people in the organization that all are building their own brands, it's going to do nothing but build the overall number of touch points and connections that the firm can have overall. People have a really hard time forging a connection with a business, right? So you might love your local doctor. When you talk about going to the doctor, you don't say, I love University Hospital Systems. You say, I love Dr. Good. He's amazing. This is why he's great. It's the exact same thing in any profession. We don't think of ourselves as having a relationship with the logo of the company. We have the relationship with the people that work there. So social media is just an extension of real life, as I talked about before. And so having that personal brand is so imperative, because don't think of it as a brand. I think that's where people get caught up, is like, I'm just me. I don't need to have a personal brand. Think of it as just you're building relationships online the same way you build them offline. You wouldn't say, I'm not going to, shoot the breeze and ask people about their kids or how their weekend was when they come in, because I just want them to only be focused on the business, right? You would never say that. It's the exact same thing online. Now I forgot what your second part of your question was.
You kind of touched on it, but it was, why is it so important to always be marketing?
I mean, at the end of the day, what the mistake I see a lot of people do is they feel like, okay, I have a good business, I have a good pipeline, so I'm going to take a step back. And then they wait, and then all of a sudden things are drying up and then they need to get back at it. If you just be consistent, you will have a consistent, influx of people coming your way. And the thing is that, especially in our industry, it's not like, we're not selling Procter and Gamble products where someone does all their laundry and it's the end of the week and they need to go buy more Tide and they're constantly, thinking about it. We never really know what's going to be the element that's going to push someone to say, okay, I really need to take care of this. I need to contact someone and have them help me with my finances, or I really need to just get this insurance situation figured out, or whatever it is. So we have to constantly be marketing because we don't know what those trigger points are going to be for people. And I'd much rather have an influx of people than, be waiting until we're desperately trying to find someone new, because that's when you become desperate or desperado, as you mentioned.
All right. Two last kind of business related questions, specifically in regards to LinkedIn. I know that there are people that I work with and people that I've talked to that are financial professionals that they don't want to post because they think, oh, I don't know what to say, or I don't really know if this is relevant. What do you see to those people that kind of overthink their LinkedIn presence?
I would say, first of all, have you ever heard when you go to a dance and so many people won't dance because they're worried they're going to make a fool of themselves? And that's saying nobody's looking at you because they're all just thinking, how do I look? It's the same thing on social media. Nobody really cares about you. I hate to say it. Again, they don't care about you. They care what you can do for them. So if the post doesn't resonate with them, they are going to just scroll right by. They're not going to think, oh, that was a terrible post. Why did they share that? Oh my gosh. And go home and talk to their wife and kids about it. They just won't think about it anymore. So it kind of gives you liberty to not worry so much because nobody really cares. The second thing I would say is stop writing or posting as if you are teaching the entire world something. Think of one friend. If you have a friend who isn't in your industry, but you read something and you're like, oh, this would be so helpful to my friend who owns this business, then write your post as if you're just telling that friend about it. Hey, I read this article in the Wall Street Journal. It got this all wrong, and we see this all the time, and here's what you should know about it. Or, hey, I know everyone's talking about the tariffs right now, and I just read this article, and it did such a good job summarizing it in really plain language. So I'm sharing it here with all of you because I think it's got some excellent points, and I'm going to list out what they are. Read it for yourself and tell me what you think. Picture one person in your life that you would share it with and act as if you're writing them a text or an email, instead of feeling like you're teaching the entire world something. I think that will really help you get over your fear.
That's great advice. All right. Last business related question. If you were going to give one piece of marketing advice to all of our listeners, most of which are financial professionals, what would it be?
Oh, just pick one thing. Okay.
Just one.
I would say that a lot of times it is not what you are selling or your product or your service that's the problem. It is the way that you are messaging it that is the problem. So I know that's pretty broad, but if your message isn't landing, if your social media posts aren't sticking, if nobody's really replying to your emails, it's not that the content is bad or that the service or the product that you provide isn't super helpful. It's that you haven't yet hit on the pain point that people are struggling with that you can help them fix. So there is something called hooks in marketing. And the hook is, think of it, the first line of a social post, the subject line of an email. Think of it as the gate we stand in front of. And the hook has to be so good that in order for us to open up that gate and keep going. If your stuff is falling flat, you really need to go back and look at your hooks. So you can just do some Google searches, watch some YouTube videos about, writing good hooks. Nailing that will make such a massive difference in getting people invested in what you have to say and get them to keep watching, keep listening, keep reading.
We like to end these podcasts with a few fun questions. And I'm going to ask you the nerdiest fun question we've ever had in the history of this podcast. So if you were going to collaborate with any famous marketer, who would it be and what type of project would you want to work on?
Oh, I love that so much. I think I know exactly who I would choose first. I would pick Rory Sutherland. He's, for those of you who don't know marketing, he was one of the founders of Ogilvy, the famous British firm. And he has a really amazing book called Alchemy that I think every business owner should read. It's not just about marketing, but just thinking about why certain businesses or messages or campaigns work and others don't. But for a project that I'd want to work on with him, I think I would love to work on a project with him that would help get young people in high school before they leave school super interested in just basic financial literacy. Make it really appealing to them to know what a mortgage is and to understand what they need to do when it comes to graduation and all of that, because I'm sure he'd have such amazing ideas because he's a really great out-of-the-box thinker.
That's so important. And I think that it's one of the failings of our school system that they don't have some basic
Right.
teaching there. People that turn 18 and get a credit card and immediately start running up debt, and it just chases them for the rest of their life. I think it's a really common thing. And I think that some basic financial literacy would be really helpful. So that's a great project. I hope you get that opportunity because
Yeah,
that
me
sounds
too.
amazing. All right. When we were doing research for this podcast, it was uncovered that you announced you're going to be moving to London for a little bit here.
Yes.
First, what inspired that, and what do you plan to do while you're over there? Are you going to still be working with financial professionals? Are you going to be working with financial professionals in England, or is your business not going to really change? You're just going to be across the pond, as they say.
So it's sort of everything. Business won't change in terms of what I do with FMG day in and day out with educating people, working with the product team, speaking at events. But then I'm also going to be doing a lot in London. So I will be speaking at conferences. I'm going to be doing some marketing workshops with their version of the CFP called the CISI. And really what started all this was I had went over there for a couple work events and been invited speaker and started seeing that they do not have anything like FMG there. There are a few amazing agencies that do agency work, but they don't really have the technology that's specific to financial professionals there. So we're just sort of helping get that started. And instead of going back and forth, I have 3 little kids. I thought, this would be really fun. My kids are young enough. They go to a private Catholic school, and the school was great to work with. And so they're going to be pulled out of school early for the last 5 weeks of school. And then we will spend 4 months in London and get to explore the UK and hopefully do some day trips around Europe. And it just felt like, one of those why nots instead of whys. So it all fell into place.
All right. Well, let me ask you the most important question in relation to London. Who's your football team? Because
Oh,
that's going to be asked a lot when you're over there.
it is. So my son is almost 10 and he is obsessed with Man City, even though they're not a London team. He's going to be spending a week at a Man City football camp while we're over there in June, and he's so excited. So he would kill me if I root for anyone other than them in the Premier League.
All right. As long as it's not Liverpool. I'm a big Man United fan. So,
Okay.
City I don't love, but Liverpool,
Well, you
it's
can't
next
if you're a
level.
Man
Yeah.
United fan. Yeah.
No, definitely not. All right. Last question for you. What does your perfect weekend look like? If you were to be able to schedule it out and everything came to fruition, what would it be?
Every Friday night, me and the kids do like a movie and takeout dinner. So we'd start with that, and then they'd all magically sleep in their own beds through the night and let me sleep in the morning. And then I'd have some coffee, and then I love to do something active with them. So take like a really fun daytime adventure, go do a hike, go for a swim, something like that. And then come home, make a really good healthy dinner, maybe barbecue, have some friends over, drink some wine on the patio. And then on Sunday, go to church and read a great book.
That sounds like a pretty great weekend. You could
Thanks.
I'll co-sign that. Although my
Okay.
kids are no longer movie takeout age, but
Oh, I
I
know I
remember
gotta
those
do it.
days, and I remember those days. And it was same thing in my family. Every Friday night it was get takeout, go to the store, get some popcorn or some candy, and watch a movie on. Back then it was pay-per-view because there was no streaming at that time, but that's what we would do, or go to Blockbuster.
Yeah,
And
Blockbuster.
yeah, exactly. Well, Samantha, terrific interview. So many great insights. I think anybody that was listening is going to be able to pull some away either for the firm or their personal digital marketing presence. Really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. Enjoy London. I hope your son has a blast at the Man City football camp. That sounds amazing. And we'd definitely love to have you back on the show, maybe sometime next year. But thanks again for joining us here today.
Thank you so much. I would love that. I'd love to come back anytime.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.